be like Tony's Bar?
It's typically a percent of your beverage
Yeah.
sales has to be food. If it's below that threshold, then you're a bar.
We'll find out.
Well, it's going to be tough. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, Don, I agree.
It's going to be tough on a lot of businesses.
Yep. Shut us down here, Dave.
I didn't see the numbers today. Were the numbers bad today?
I didn't see him.
We're up over 730, I think, here locally.
Hi, Doug.
Mr. President.
Got the Clemson flag up again, I see.
Have some Clemson masks if you guys would like to borrow them. Or anything.
Well, hang on to them. We'll let you know.
We think they're playing, Doug?
We need two of those.
Oh, gee. Get off of there, Spurgeon.
You think they're going to play, Doug?
I'd really rather not talk about it.
Are you in mourning?
Not yet, but I'm kind of worried.
It's depressing.
I truly don't know what I'll do on Saturday in October if I can't watch football. I honestly don't know.
Yeah. Be a bad Saturday, wouldn't it? I'll miss texting you at 10:30 at night saying touchdown.
And 10:45 and 10:50 and 11:05.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They are signing in.
Don, we are live, just so you're aware.
Okay. So you say you have a couple folks parked for citizens' comments already?
Yes,
2?
2, correct.
Okay.
Except it says 3 in waiting, but there's 2 of the same person.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. When we admit them, we'll have this happens.
Well, I know Doug, you wants to speak on citizens' comments just for a minute about the CARES Fund. So,
Yeah, he's one of those that is in the queue waiting.
who are we missing? We got everybody? Let's see. Yep. Got about 1 more minute. We'll get going here. Well, Jonathan, you didn't shave the beard on your vacation? Doing okay?
Yeah,
I'm doing okay. I heard he got bit by a jellyfish.
my son did. My son.
Oh, how's he doing?
He's doing fine. He never wanted to go in the ocean again, but he went in the ocean the next day. So
Oh, good.
we got him. And then my daughter got stung, but not quite as bad.
Oh, gosh.
But you would have thought his arm got bit off by a shark when he got hit.
Takes after his dad.
Hey, Don, we do have an additional person that just called in for citizen comments. So
Okay.
FYI.
Thank you. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We're going to call this July 20th, 2020 meeting of your Newark City Council to order. Janine, please call the roll.
Mr. Bob?
Here.
Mr. Fennell? Mr. Fennell? Can you not hear me?
He looks like he's frozen.
Should I go on then?
Yeah,
Ms. Hall?
Just go on and we'll come back.
Ms. Hall? Here. Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Labutus?
Here.
Mr. Lang?
Present.
Mr. Marmee?
Present.
Mr. Rath?
Here.
Mr. Barker,
Here.
Mr. Blake,
Here.
We'll hang on a minute for Mr. Fennell.
Anyone else getting some feedback, or is that just me?
Yeah, I don't know who it's coming from though.
Getting some weird noise also. I'll turn mine down here. Mr. Fennell, you with us?
disappeared again, it looks like. There he is. Mr. Fennell?
Hey, I'm gonna switch to my phone.
Donna, I wonder if that feedback is coming from your computer.
I don't know. What do you want me to do? Go to mute?
Or just turn down your volume.
I just clicked it down a little bit here. How
Yeah.
about that? Has that
Okay.
helped?
Let me get Sean in here.
I don't hear it now.
No, I'm bringing Sean back in.
There. Mr. Fennell?
Sean, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Mr. Fennell okay? I can't hear Mr. Fennell.
Can you hear me?
Hey, got you now.
All right. Sorry about that.
Okay, next we'll go to the invocation by Mr. Labutus.
I would pray. Heavenly Father, as we come to you prayer this evening, we thank you for the beautiful day and the beautiful weather that you've given us over the past week. I just thank you for this opportunity that we can serve our city and serve you as well. I ask that you be with our city and our country and our state as many seem so bad. I would ask that you bring your peace and unity into our lives and to help us to be united as one. Ask you to be with our discussions this evening and help us to keep your vision in mind for our city. These things I ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Labutus. If you please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it
which
stands,
it stands, one nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Barker. I hope you didn't get
Yes.
I hope you didn't get my shorts in that one.
No guarantees.
Next on the agenda, we have caucus. That's a time for council to discuss anything pertaining to the agenda tonight. Do we have anything? Also tonight, we're going to try during citizens' comments. We have some folks parked for citizens' comments. If you'd like to, we're going to try it. If you'd like to zoom in to join the meeting is 871-1680-2864. And the password is 040848. Again, there's 2 sections for citizens' comments, so we're going to give that a try this evening and see how that goes. Next, we have the minutes of our July 7th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those?
Motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Labutus, second by Mr. Barker. All those in favor, give me a thumbs up. Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you. We have no appointments this evening. We have 4 reports tonight from standing committees, 1 from finance, 1 from service, 1 from streets, and 1 from safety. Without objection, those will be received and filed. We have one report this evening from city officials from our auditor, Stephen Johnson, the operating report for the period ending June 30th, 2020. Without objection, that will also be received and filed. We have no communications this evening. And next is the first time for citizens' comments. This is not a debate with council. This is just a time for you to be heard. I kind of forget to spiel on that. I haven't said it for long enough. Is there anyone waiting this evening that would like to speak? Spencer, pick one. Spencer, you're muted. Oh, you're talking to them.
That always helps. Superintendent Oot, if you'd state your name and address for the record, you were the first one clicked in today.
Good evening, Doug Ute, Superintendent, Newark City Schools, and my official address is 106 Opal Lane, Prospect, Ohio.
Go ahead, Doug.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you, President Ellington and members of the City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm nearing less than 2 weeks in my official capacity as superintendent of the Newark City Schools. So let me just take this opportunity to thank council members and the mayor and the city of Newark for 11 great years in Newark. And I really feel with our building project and everything we've done here, we've had great cooperation from the city and the city leaders. And so I want to personally thank you for that and thank you for your leadership in Newark. And I know that I'm joined by a few board members who are just joining in tonight from the district, and appreciate their leadership. Tim Carr, Warren Weber, I think Tom Blind might even be on here also. But so my purpose tonight, or our purpose tonight, is to talk to you about consideration for receiving some funds from the CARES Act that the city is receiving for the schools. And I would just share with you that since March, we've incurred a lot of costs related to this virus, as you well know, as you have also. And so looking at a long-term plan with this virus and what it means to us, even marching forward here in our district, what it means to the schools. So as we bring back well over 6,000 students and hopefully bring them back this fall, just to share with you our plan right now as we're looking at all kind of options, because it seems to change weekly. Obviously working with the governor's office, the Ohio Department of Education, and the local health department, and which has been very helpful. Chad Brown and his leadership has. So, our goal would simply be to get our 6,000 plus students back in our buildings, but we are also offering an online virtual opportunity through the Newark Digital Academy. With that, there are some costs that the district's going to incur that directly relate to student safety. And I would add student and staff safety. And that could be anything from shields on desks to separate students, to masks, certainly sanitizing, all those things that we would incur cost and cleaning each day and weekends and those type of things. Plus the fact from a technological standpoint, I'm in belief that, we're going to have a group of students stay home and learn. Just as an example, we passed out over 1,300 devices last spring. So our students would have opportunity to learn at home during this situation. And with that, when you put a device in a home, and some parents might have 2, 3, 4. We have one family with 8 students in their household. And so one device in a house is rather difficult. And so we're in hopes that we're going to be able to help our students from a one-to-one. I know the new superintendent coming in, Mr. David Lewis, and by the way, you're really going to like David. He's a great guy. He's going to fit in well here in Newark. He's getting off to a very good start in this difficult time. But I know it's David's goal with the board to try to put a device in every student's hand throughout. Some of the things that we learned last spring from parents is that as they went off to work. Some of them did. The older ones kind of dominated the house, and maybe the second grader didn't have that opportunity. So from a standpoint of the costs that we're incurring, and we're not asking for a full-fledged, hey, you pay for everything. The board certainly is putting in their share. It's just very difficult running forward, and we're very thankful we're in solid, for a school district, solid financial condition when the virus hit. But when you look, you can't just look at because we some federal money, but what I would be concerned about in Newark, and I know our board and Mr. Harris, our treasurer, certainly is, what's the impact of the income tax collection in Newark, which generates over $9 million a year for the school, and that's going to take a hit. And so, all these funds that we're trying to secure to pay for some of those things that I talked about are very important to us as a district. So, again, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Appreciate everything each of you do to lead our community, and I'll be happy to answer any questions or Don, I don't want to tell you how to run your meeting, so I would tell any board member or Julio, I saw him pop on here. If they wanted to say anything or add anything that I forgot, please feel free to do so.
Thank you, Doug. We appreciate it. I know we all appreciate you were certainly stepped in as the right person at the right time, and your tenure has been terrific. So thank you for all that you've done for Newark City Schools. I mean, we appreciate it.
Appreciate you saying that.
Thank you. Spencer, who do we have next?
Unless there's other board members, or if there's any other people from the public, but I believe everyone else here is either a board member or not.
If anyone would like to speak, raise your hand and we'll recognize it.
I'm looking for my raise hand thing and I don't see it. There it is.
Tim, would you like to speak?
Just for a moment, please.
Go ahead. Just give us your name and address for the record and have at it.
Tim Carr, 1554 Independence Drive in Newark, Ohio. I am actually the board president for Newark City Schools and have the privilege of working with almost 6,700 incredible kids. And that is why we're here talking to you today. We believe in our children. We know they're the future, but they're also the now, and they need some help now.
Is anybody else?
Tim, I don't think your audio is working.
Oh, am I better?
Yes.
Okay. Plexiglass partitions for the lower grade classrooms. They sit at tables, and if there could be some plexiglass partitions between them, it would allow them to be a little safer. Also, it would allow them to see and hear their friends, but be in a less dangerous situation. I think all of us are concerned about everyone catching this, and as I get older, I realize that I'm in the dangerous range. So and finally, it would be a technology. What we're going to find, I believe, is that we're going to need an increase in the number of computers and devices, and also perhaps capacity to facilitate that. And so some of those things, and we've certainly set aside a good number. Julio Valadares has worked out an incredible plan to increase our technology over the next 5 years. But there could be some costs that are unaccounted for as far as what we'll be experiencing in the next 2 or 3 months. And that's kind of what we're thinking about when we bring this to you. And I just humbly ask for help if you can give it. I know there's a lot of needs and a lot of folks out there that need resources, but I appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much for a chance to speak.
Thank you, Tim. Is there anyone else? Mr. Weber? Unmute yourself, please. Warren, unmute yourself.
Okay, there you go. Warren Weber, 896 Jean Court, Newark, Ohio, Newark City School Board member. Just like to echo what Doug and Tim said. And also, we feed our kids breakfast, lunch, and in some cases dinner. And then we talked about having the blended learning where, we'll feed kids, breakfast and lunch Monday and Tuesday if they're in school, and then give them food for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then the kids that are there Thursday, Friday will get food for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, in some cases over the weekend, because they don't have enough to eat. And, it costs money. And so, and then you talk about technology and, making sure that our kids get the best education that we can possibly give them. We're just like you all. We have no idea how long this is going to last and what the ramifications are. But, we just humbly ask that you consider us in your decision on how your funds will go this year. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have one more, Spencer? I see a phone line.
Yeah. Phone line 2 with last 4 digits, 2152.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, this is Leisha Farias with St. Vincent de Paul, St. Teresa of Calcutta, and the Newark Think Tank on Poverty, 116 Smithview Drive.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate everything that Superintendent Ute and the others from the board have said, and it's critical that we provide those things so that children can be safe in school. But at the same time, we also have to make sure that their families are stable. The children cannot go to school if their parents are being evicted from their homes. So I would really like the mayor of Newark to call the mayor of Zanesville, who has put together a package. They received $894,000, and they have put $200,000 towards Wi-Fi and Chrome and PPE for their children, plus nutritional food. They put $100,000 towards child care facilities, because if a parent is an essential worker and has to go to work, they need to make sure that their child can be in school if the parent cannot be at home. So I hope that we will make sure that in Newark we also have facilities so that children can be in school when their parents are not there. Also, the mayor of Zanesville put together $150,000 for economic relief for rent, utilities, and security deposits. So if people are losing their homes or are facing eviction, that they can get assistance so that they can be stable in their home. And there's also funding, I know, in the CARES Act funds, expenses for care of the homeless and to mitigate COVID-related, COVID and enable compliance of people that are already out on the street. But unless Newark would put into place a moratorium on evictions, we're going to see so many more of Newark City Schools parents and families out on the street because they will not be able to afford to stay in their homes. So I hope that Newark will take a really comprehensive look at what we can do with the monies, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
I'll have to unmute myself. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. There is one other opportunity for.
Like Linda Mossholder was on too.
I'm sorry, John.
I just saw Linda Mossholder she's on mute right now, but I saw she had joined.
Yeah, she's on. She muted after she came on.
Linda, would you like to speak?
I will speak at the next opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And thanks, folks from the school board. I know I talked to Dave Rhodes today just to give you a quick update. And I don't know, maybe the mayor will want to chime in, but he has not made any plans particularly. They're working on plans for this CARES money. And I know he's aware of the school. I know he talked about possibly some funding for lunches and funding for facilities. So I know he is aware of your situation. So I know they're talking about it. So thanks, fellas. Okay, next we're going to move on to ordinances on the first reading, 20-18. Janine.
Ordinance number 20-18 by Mr. Rath, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property generally described as 44 North Westmore Avenue, City of Newark, Licking County, Ohio, from that of GO General Office District to MB Medium Intensity Business District zoning code of the City of Newark, Ohio.
20-18 will be referred to the Planning Commission and then back to us. Next on the first reading, we have 20-19.
Ordinance number 20-19 by Mr. Rath, an ordinance consenting to the annexation of certain territory generally described as being approximately 0.29 acres, more or less, located in Newark Township to the City of Newark, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
20-19 is on its first reading, but it is an emergency. Mr. Sassen, would you like to go ahead?
If I could, Mr. Chairman or Mr. President, just to refresh everyone's memory, ordinance 20-19 and 20-20 are mirror opposites of each other. They obviously both cannot pass. If council wants to consent, you can certainly move forward on 20-19, at which point then you can allow 20-20 to just die for lack of motion. We've been through this process before, but I thought I should just refresh everyone's memory.
Thank you, Director Sassen. Appreciate that. Again, you've heard the first reading of 20-19. It is an emergency. So what is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 20-19.
Motion by Mr. Rath.
Second.
Second by Mr. Barker. Mr. Rath, I didn't recognize you with your glasses on. I had to take a second look. I couldn't. Now I know. Is there any discussion on 20-19? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus, Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
20-19 passes 10-0. Again, as Mr. Sassen said, if 20-19 passes, then 20-20 we will read, but we will probably want to let that die for lack of a motion since we've already passed 20-19. So Janine, would you read 20-20?
Ordinance number 20-20 by Mr. Rath, an ordinance objecting to the annexation of certain territory generally described as being 0.29 acres, more or less, located in Newark Township to the City of Newark, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Janine. Since we've just passed 20-19, then 20-20 will die for lack of a motion. Next, we have 20-21.
Ordinance number 20-21 by Mr. Fennell, an ordinance vacating a portion of a 12-foot wide alley as shown on the plat of the William C. Mahalam subdivision of outlot number 66 of Bradley Buckingham's addition in the town of Newark. As recorded in Plat Book 2, page 184 of the Licking County Plat Records, said alley is located at the rear of properties at 206, 208, and 210 Eddy Street.
20-21 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading. Next, we have 20-22.
Ordinance number 20-22 by Mr. Marmee to provide for the issuance of a $965,000 of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying a portion of the city's cost and a portion of the property owner's cost in anticipation of the levy and collection of special assessments for Horns Hill Road sanitary sewer project improvements and declaring an emergency.
Again, 20-22 is on its first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmee.
I make a motion to adopt 20-22.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmee.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rath. Mr. Bub.
Yes, Mr. President. I did not mention this in caucus, but I will abstain from this vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bub. Mr. Bub will be abstaining. Is there any discussion on 20-22? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
20-22 passes 9-0 with one abstention. Next resolution is on the second reading, 20-41.
Resolution number 20-41 by Mr. Lang, a resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
You've heard the second reading of 20-41. What is your wish?
President?
Mr. Lang,
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 20-41.
motion to adopt by Mr. Lang,
Second.
second by Mr. Barker. Is there any discussion on 20-41? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll and vote.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
yes,
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus, Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
20-41 passes 10-0. Next on the second reading, we have 20-42.
Resolution number 20-42 by Mr. Marmee, a resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
You've heard the first reading of 20-42. I'm sorry, you've heard the second reading of 20-42. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmee,
I make a motion to adopt resolution 20-42.
thank you, Mr. Marmee. Motion by Mr. Marmee,
I'll second that.
second by who?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Bub. Is there any discussion on 20-42? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
yes,
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
20-42 passes 10-0. And finally, we move on to resolutions on the first reading, 20-43.
Resolution number 20-43 expedite by Mr. Marmee, a resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
20-43 is on.
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmee,
yes, I make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule on resolution 20-43.
motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Marmee,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Bub. Mr. Marmee,
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We have a couple of payouts that we always expedite to get individuals their money as soon as possible. We also have some taxes that we have to, from the JEDZ, that we have to get to the appropriate entities. And then we also have some bills that are due and we have to expedite those.
thank you, Mr. Marmee. Janine, please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
yes,
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
2-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Marmee,
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion to adopt resolution 20-43.
motion to adopt by Mr. Marmee,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Bub. Is there any discussion on 20-43 before we vote? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
yes,
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes. Yes.
20-43 passes 10-0. Next on the first reading, the next three are emergencies and then we're done. 20-44. These all have to do with the annexation we passed earlier. Janine?
Resolution number 20-44 by Mr. Rath. A resolution adopting a statement indicating what services, if any, the city of Newark, Ohio will provide for approximately 0.29 acres, more or less, located in Newark Township, a territory proposed for expedited to annexation and declaring an emergency.
Again, this is on the first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
I can make a motion to adopt 20-44.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Rath,
Second.
second by Mr. Barker. Is there any discussion on 20-44?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
20-44 and 20-45 are both declared an emergency for reading filing deadlines.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. Anyone else? Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Bob,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
20-44 passes 10-0. And again, as Mr. Rath said, 45 and 46 are for the same property. So next we have 20-45.
Resolution number 20-45 by Mr. Rath, a resolution regarding a buffer zone for the annexation of approximately 0.29 acres, more or less, located in Newark Township and declaring an emergency.
You know what? I just misspoke. That's only 45. 46 is the CARES Act. I'm sorry. You've heard the first reading of 20-45. It is on the first reading. It is emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
I can make a motion to adopt 20-45.
Motion by Mr. Rath,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Barker. Is there any discussion on 20-45? Sorry about that, Mr. Rath. All right, Janine, please call the roll.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
20-45 passes 10-0. And finally, tonight, we have 20-46.
Resolution number 20-46 by Mr. Rath, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor and auditor to take all steps necessary to request such funds as may be available from the county Coronavirus Relief Distribution Fund under the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, CARES, and to expend such funds only to cover costs consistent with Section 5001 of the CARES Act and declaring an emergency.
Once again, 20-46 is on the first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
I can make a motion to adopt 20-46.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Rath,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Bub. Is there any discussion on 20-46?
Mr. President,
Mr. Lang?
Oh, go ahead. Let Mr. Rath go first. He had made the motion.
Mr. Rath?
I was simply going to say that we were declaring an emergency on this to meet federal filing deadlines.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. Mr. Lang?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, so, I did receive a couple of calls about this particular ordinance, and I wanted to make sure, I kind of checked with the law director to make sure we understood exactly what we're doing here. And, I think it's pretty clear in the face of the legislation tonight. Really, all we're doing here is passing some necessary legislation so that the city can go after these funds and procure them. And then obviously we'll have to come up with a system for figuring out where all those funds will go. I know talking with Director Rhodes, the city has already incurred some costs related to cleaning the building after we had the positive test. There were some costs related to trying to outfit city chambers. I don't think that will exhaust by any means the funds that coming in, but certainly there are some costs there. But in talking with Director Rhodes, and I would implore the mayor as well to look at, as a community, right? These funds are coming in, and I think we need there is a broader need beyond just the immediate needs of the facilities of the city. So I think great to hear from the board tonight, and Doug, appreciated your comments before, and having 2 kids myself going to the school district, I'm certainly personally interested in making sure that we don't leave the school out, and obviously there are demands on this money from beyond just the school as well. So I think we just need to take a holistic view as we look to how spend that money and how it comes in. So I just implore the mayor to put a process in place so that we can get these funds where they need to go, and spread them around the community as best we can. Obviously, there's a lot of competing priorities, but hopefully we can find an equitable way to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Anyone else? Mr. Blake?
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I'm with the schools being on the call tonight. I'm just confused as to, so all entities have to request dollars through the city. Is that what's happening here, or what's? I'm not clear on exactly what all is the process for, or what the request is to be included in what they're needing our actions from.
Mayor, do you have a comment to that, or Mr. Rhodes?
Yeah, I can probably comment a little bit, and some of it we're still pulling together. Of course, legislation night is one step that's required. There's time frames. It has to be used for this virus period. It cannot be used for anything in the future. So there's a lot of guidelines, but as in anything with the CARES and CARES funding, it was formulated pretty quick. I mean, you know how Congress usually works, not very quick. And so it was formulated very quick, and we're making sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and reading all the specifics of Section 5001 and going through it. So was the piece a little more for local government and county and local government. So we're making sure, I had conversations last week with the county. Again, the money passes through the county treasurer, who's kind of an ambassador of the state. And we're just making sure everything's in order. So I certainly appreciate, I think Councilman Lang said it right, and essentially said many things I was going to say during my part, which is fine. But it's just, we're kind of soliciting input and knowing that great need from many directions, and just making sure that it's all done properly. There likely will be an audit down the road, and that could be a state audit. It could be a federal audit since it's federal dollars. And we just want to be sure no one's getting into something that would not be okayed. I have Office of Budget Management in Columbus, had good dialogue with them. And so what our idea is to kind of put a list together, flush that through them, and get some okays. There's things that seem very obvious. There are things that are not quite as obvious that would be needed and could be paid for. So again, when it moves this quick through Congress and out to us, that's what the intent is. But it also has a whole lot of gray area and a whole lot of specifics missing. I kind of compared it to our CDBG funds. That's taken decades to get to where it's at today. And it's very specific and kind of somewhat easy to deploy a little bit and do our subrecipient grants. And surely our department does a wonderful job of that. This one's a little different. So again, I solicit people to give us input. I have no problem with that at all. That's absolutely what we're here for, is local government. And we're going to sit there. We want to be sure the employees of the city have the safeties around them so they can continue to help the community. And then we're going to see the extension on. The county government also has money. And then if there are funds that are not used by us, they're turned back to the county. The county takes a piece of it, and some of it goes all the way back to the federal government. So we're just balancing out, but we're in a kind of a information collecting time. I'll just leave it at that. So, and absolutely. Request, I don't think it's that formal, other than giving us ideas. And I think some of it's pretty obvious to us in many ways, but surely anybody has input, please pass it on to us. We're all open ears for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Lang?
Yeah, I just wanted to add briefly to kind of help answer Jeremy's question a little bit. In talking to Director Sasson, he had shared with me the Department of Treasury's guidelines for how the funds have been used. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but I'll circulate that to the rest of council. It kind of expands on, there's 3 prongs to the legislation we're passing tonight: necessary expenditures that weren't accounted for in the budget, that were incurred during this time period of March 1st through December 31st of this year. But then it kind of expands on each of those so you can get a better sense of how, what can fall into those buckets and what we can use. And then I think that'd be helpful for all of us to see. And then if there's ideas, like the mayor said, we can certainly, talk with the administration about those.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Anyone else? And this is just a resolution. It's a first step, and the mayor and the auditor can basically just request such funds. That's kind of where we have to start. Correct, Mayor? Thank you. Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Fennell?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
2046 passes 10-0. And that concludes the legislation tonight. Thank you for your attention. Next, we have our second opportunity for comments from citizens. Again, this is not a debate with council. This is just your opportunity to be heard. I believe we had Linda Mossholder still waiting.
Yes.
Linda, just give us your name and address for the record and go.
Linda Mossholder, 224 Green Meadow Drive in Newark, Ohio. I would just like some clarification on to whom do we send our recommendations for use of the CARE funds? Do we send that to our council person? Do we send that to the mayor?
I'll tell you what, you can send it to the council clerk and she can compile them and get them to the mayor.
Okay, that was my main question. And it's my understanding, are there 2 separate parts? I know the county has been allocated $2.5 million worth of CARES fund to be managed by Ken Oswald. Is there another pot that's coming to the city, or is the city going to take some of the county's money?
I don't know the answer to that. Mayor, do you know the answer to that?
Yes, I can answer that. Each of the cities within the county also have it's not a subset of 2. It's 2.4 at the county. This is in addition to that 2.4. I don't have the link right now, but I think if you Google it somewhere, there was a breakdown. I even think it might have been in the Advocate, but it's certainly a breakdown of what each communities. It is based on the local government funds formula, which no one understands, but that had to be an in force formula, because if they had to come up with a new one, that would have taken months and months, if not longer. So that's kind of what it's based around a little bit. The county has their piece, 2.4 million. The city has a piece, 1.4 million. Each of the cities and communities throughout Licking County cities have their pieces too. So.
Good, thank you. You answered my question.
Anyone else for this section of citizens' comments? Okay, any city officials this evening?
Mr. President, this is Mark Motter from the Community Development Department.
Hi, Mr. Motter, go right ahead.
Thank you. I was very happy to report that over the last several weeks, community development and property maintenance have again teamed up to put on several city cleanup days. One was on June 27th, where we worked on the south side. And more recently was just this past Saturday on July the 18th. We worked on the northern side, which is primarily Hudson Avenue and going north to about Channel Street, south to Route 16, and east to about Clinton Street, and west to about Central Avenue. And very pleased to report that's been one of our most successful cleanup days to date. So again, we're very pleased that we were able to have good collaboration, cooperation with property maintenance, and turned out to be a very successful cleanup day. So just wanted to report that to City Council and anybody else who is listening in this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Motter. Thank you. Any other city officials? Okay. Law Director Doug Clemson Sassen.
Mr. President, I don't know if you wanted to speak about continuing meetings on Zoom or if that's already been discussed, or you want me to comment on that?
You could do that if you would. We talked about that today. That would be great.
At this point, it's fairly simple. We can continue to have all of our otherwise public meetings on Zoom as long as the state remains under a state of emergency. I think that technically that state of emergency right now expires July 31st, but given the way numbers are going right now and the trends we're seeing, I suspect that will be continued. And so this process, if council chooses to do so, can remain in effect as long as that state of emergency is in effect, or until December 30th, whichever comes first. And it's really that simple, but if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you, Director Sassen. Anything else this evening?
Go Tigers.
Thank you. Mayor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, President Ellington and the council members. I would just encourage everyone to continue patronizing our businesses within the city limits. The chamber has declared this Eat Out Week to help the restaurants. Of course, I wouldn't say that without saying use safety standards, social distancing, masks wearing, obviously, hand washing and sanitizing, all those things that this has got us this far. As good as we have, and I think we want to keep continuing to do that. Don't forget the farmers market is still on Tuesdays and Fridays. It's been pretty devastating to a lot of these businesses, and sometimes we can kind of get by through the day and not feel that, but I'm telling you, they are feeling it. So they want to thank everybody I know that is patronizing them now. Of course, you can always do takeout. You can go ahead. Many places will run it out to your car to you. So that's a good sale. Doesn't mean you have to go indoors and eat. Many of them have outdoor dining too that you can do, but again, you can grab it and take it home. So please continue to do that. I do want to congratulate and thank Doug Ute for wonderful years at Newark City Schools. He is a true collaborator and communicator, I think, that has just done a phenomenal job. And we are much better off for that. Our schools are just the backbone of our city, really, and it is the future with the students. So I wish him the best of luck as he moves on to his next ventures in life. The school board, I think, has done a nice job for his replacement. Big shoes to fill, but David Lewis will do a nice job, I believe, and we're anxious to have good relationships as he can come in, and I'm sure we will. So, but again, congratulations, Doug, and thank you for all your great years, and good luck to you. Move on. Finally, this is the final week of Barry Connell being our police chief, and he made that quite evident the day after I appointed him 5 years ago in an article, which was almost humorous to some point, but he really had a focus of 5 years. Yeah, he's brought in some nice collaboration into the department, and we talked about doing looking in more into the future instead of just being reactive, being a little more proactive. And we've got some great new hires on board, and in the last couple of years, they're doing great jobs. So I want to thank Barry publicly, Chief Connell, and wish him the best of luck in his retirement, and hope he enjoys it. At the same time, this is also to be the last week of Director Steve Baum as Safety Director, as he will be the new police chief. And I want to thank him for doing a great job as Safety Director. And I look forward to working with him in the new police chief's position. So with that, I will pass. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Bob?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Just a few items this evening. First off, wanted to wish fellow Councilman Jeff Rath the best. As attended his wedding on Saturday at the Canal Market District, and it was a nice event. So certainly wish you and Jen the best. I would also like to echo the mayor's sentiments about local businesses, the businesses and workers. They all need the support, and a lot of their livelihoods depend on this. So I would encourage everyone to get out and support them. Wish Barry Connell the best in his retirement, and congratulate Steve Baum on being the new police chief. With that, I will pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. Mr. Fennell?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank Mr. Motter for setting up the neighborhood cleanup and your team for all of that. I imagine that this was particularly successful because people might have a little bit more time around their house. I know I've done a lot of cleaning as well. So thank you so much for setting that up. I know that my neighborhood is part of that and we really appreciate it. Also to everyone who spoke tonight, Doug Youth, the school board members, Leisha Ferris and Linda Mossholder. Thank you again for continuing to be engaged in the community and make sure that you send in those recommendations. I think more minds on this, the better. So I really do appreciate that. I'd like to thank Chief Connell for all of his service to the city. And excuse me, I'd like to also remind people to continue to wear a mask, practice social distancing, and definitely keep yourself as healthy as possible. And with that, I will yield.
Thank you, Mr. Fennell. Ms. Hall?
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank our safety forces, our firefighters and our police officers. It's a difficult time. Extra caution is necessary. And over the past few weeks, I've worked with Director Baum and Deputy Chief Logan on some issues, and nothing was ignored. They were able to take care of some stuff, so to speak. And I just really wanted to thank them for their efforts. And everybody in the administration, we've had extra work to do and hanging in there, didn't miss a beat. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Harris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. About a week and a half ago, there was a prayer rally down on the square. Councilman Labutus and I was there, and it was a really nice rally. 3 or 4 different churches came together and prayed for our city and our nation and our country. And like I always said, that's what's going to change our country and nation. So they're planning on having another one, inviting more churches. So maybe it'll be a bigger rally. I want to thank Mr. Rhodes. Had an issue on the Cherry Valley bike trail, some weeds and stuff, and you got the park guys out there to take care of it. And with that, I pass.
Mr. Harris? Mr. Labutus?
Mr. President, just a few things this evening. First, I need to thank Service Director Rhodes for helping me with an issue with a constituent. Had something that needed to be fixed, and he took care of that. Secondly, I'd like to thank Chief Connell for his service to the city over the past 5 years, and I also, as chief, and then also welcome continuing to work with Director Baum as he becomes police chief over the next few days, and continuing our working relationship as safety committee chair as we move forward. And third, last but certainly not least, I'm excited to announce that there is a park in the 4th Ward at the corner of 9th and Columbia Streets. And we will be renovating that over the next few months. Actually, if you're driving on Route 16 heading east, you can see it from 16. Right now, there is currently a swing set there and one kind of rocker animal, couple benches. Those will all be replaced with much newer items. And so I've had a chance to speak to some constituents and some neighbors in that area. They're all very excited. A lot of young children live in the area that will be able to benefit from that. So I'm excited for that, and I will keep updating the council as that comes about, and a ribbon cutting date in the future. So if you want to see pictures, they are online on my Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I've posted those all out there. So exciting times for that park. And with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Labutus. Mr. Lang?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Nothing for me tonight. I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Mr. Marmee?
Yes, first I need to call a finance committee meeting for 2 weeks from tonight. I too want to congratulate Mr. Rath on his marriage. It was a beautiful ceremony, and both he and Jen were very happy, and I was happy that they were able to share that experience with me, because I definitely enjoyed it. I also want to thank Director Baum for everything that he's done as far as our safety director. I want to wish him the good fortune as our police chief, and I'm sure we'll be working together in the future also on other items, but I wanted to thank him and wish him well also. And with that, I will pass this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Marmee. Mr. Rath?
Thank you. And thanks guys for mentioning the wedding. It was a great event. And we did go out to eat. I know the mayor said something about going out to eat this week. And we did go out to Red Oak for dinner last night with my brother who's in town for the wedding. And we certainly did our fair share of infusing money into the Newark economy this weekend. But, and I'll be making a post about that, but we absolutely love the city of Newark. And this was a city of Newark wedding without a doubt. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that later. Want to congratulate Doug Ute on his retirement and say thank you to him and to you board members who have supported him. They certainly have all been very successful at elevating our education program in Newark. And that's crucial. I want to congratulate Barry Connell and thank him for his 5 years of service as our police chief and wish him all the luck and all the best fortune in his future endeavors. Also, congratulations to Steve Baum on his promotion to police chief captain. Thank him for his service as our safety director. And I will call a service committee meeting. And with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. Mr. Barker?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank Joe Paul over in property maintenance. I had some constituents call about what looked like a hayfield over here in the 3rd Ward on Dickerson. And he was able to quickly get on that within a day to get that mowed. So I appreciate that. Also, again, just my sincere congratulations to Director Baum on his promotion to police chief, and thank you to current Chief Connell for all his work. He worked extremely hard last year with me on the Licking County Courthouse lighting security plan, a plan that worked flawlessly. So I truly appreciate what Chief Connell did, and I know Chief Baum, when we can have an event outside like that, we'll do the same. And with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. And Mr. Blake?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to offer my thanks to Director Motter. We also had a cleanup in the South End. And so thank you to Director Motter and the work that he did to have that cleanup occur. Just want to point out tonight that we still getting calls and messages dealing with the homeless issue. I actually had a call from the church at Second Church of Christ on West Main Street. Reverend Eric Miller had called me, and Rosemary Decker, who actually lives in Councilman Labudis's ward. But there are some homeless issues that are occurring over sort of in that neighborhood around Day Avenue and William Street and things. And so hopefully we can continue to find ways to properly address those concerns and help those that are in need. I hope that, considering with the schools on the call tonight and some other interested folks that had spoken up, that process to communicate out to how decisions will be made to disperse the funds of the CARES Act. There's obviously interest in that, and hopefully it can be communicated out of how to apply for those funds, how those funds will be decided upon, and things that will be communicated out to everybody. I want to thank Doug Ute. We worked together on several different issues, particularly with Ben Franklin School and just a class act, and really thank Doug for everything he's done and wanting to be a partner to the kids and families in the city of Newark, and then also the community at large. And then finally, I just want to say with Police Chief Barry Connell retiring, I want to offer just a few public comments of gratitude and thank you for his distinguished service to our community. I remember 20 years ago volunteering in the South End Block Watch is when I first met Barry Connell, and he was a K-9 unit officer at that time and gave just a demonstration to the neighborhood. And I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with Barry over the years. I have seen him empathize with residents and the troubles that exist in our neighborhoods with the drug addiction and crime. And Barry was one of the first police chiefs to embrace the program to build trust with individuals to help with their addiction and not just more jail time. Many of you know about the NARI program, which I believe will be part of Chief Connell's legacy in the NPD. He also helped on several other safety issues on numerous events throughout the community, but particularly for the South End, we had a big Halloween event down at Don Edwards Park several years ago called Spooky Town Bash, and Barry helped us get our beer garden set up for that, and so I appreciate him working with us on that, and it was a good event for the South End neighborhood. Also want to point out that Barry always has pointed out and showed up and wanting to build relationships with everyone in our community, and he and his wife often attended the Black History programs at Trinity AME Church. And I even understand now that Barry is going to be a board member on the new nonprofit working to promote diversity in our community, the Alliance for Racial Justice. And so thank you, Barry, for everything that you have done and will continue to do. We know you take your duties seriously, but at the same time, you're always very approachable. And yeah, I laugh at some of your jokes sometimes. So from my perspective in the neighborhoods that I represent, I just want to say thank you to Chief Connell. Thank you for all your good deeds, and thank you for your acts of kindness to look to others, to help others, and may you enjoy your retirement, and many blessings to you and your wife. With that, I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. I'd also like to add my congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Rath. Just very nice, very lovely wedding. Also, congratulations to Barry, who is retiring and I'm sure has a lot going on. Also to soon-to-be Chief Baum. I think you will do an excellent job. One more thing, ex-council person Carol Floyd. I'm sure all of you know her. Most of us serve with her. Besides being my 8th grade civics teacher at Lincoln, she is turning 80 tomorrow. So if anybody would like to give her a call or send her a card, I think that would be great. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Labutus, second by Mr. Harris. All those in favor signify by a thumbs up. Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much for your attention this evening. We're adjourned.